Hey everyone, we are live here tonight, enjoying all you lovely people who've come out to talk to us. This is Jacqueline Garlick, author of the If Only serial. Yes, just finished the last of the 5 books in that serial. Yay, very excited to be done, and very excited for you to read them. And I'm here with Amber Argyle.
Yep, this is me. So my books are the Witch Song books and the Fairy Queen series. This is my newest book, the full-length one anyway. It's Summer Queen. So, and I'm working on the final in that series right now, just drafting it.
That's really great. I love that cover. Can we see that cover again? That's a really pretty cover. Wow, your art is amazing on those covers. I love them so much.
I know, me too. It's my favorite. So
you're great.
Thanks.
So we're going to open it up to some questions. So if you're out there watching and you have any questions for us, you go right ahead and put it in the Q&A, and we will pop on and see them and answer them as they arise. So hopefully we'll have a lot of fun, and we'll talk about some other things along the way. The theme for tonight again is what, Amber? Give us a run over of that theme.
We're kind of talking about, what are we talking about? Hold on, I got to see how we phrased it. When everything changes. So we're talking about, and we're relating this to like our real lives and the books, because in the books, it mirrors real life in that way, in that everybody experiences this moment when everything changes. And we want that moment to resonate with our readers and realize that, yeah, this happens in fiction. And the reason that we like to read fiction is because we see characters come across the other moment, that life-changing moment, and they come out it triumphant in some way, for the most part. There's a few books that don't. They're usually not very popular.
Yeah, it's so very true, right? And the entire If Only series is based on that. I was exploring that one moment where you make a decision in a split second, and it serves, you know, so many people in different ways, and it affects everyone's lives, and it's like a ripple effect. What you do and decide in that moment, you know, will carry on throughout your life and other people's lives, and how they're all touched by it and that kind of thing. So that's great.
Yeah, exactly.
So I have, the first question is Jessica Porter. Hi, Jessica. We're so glad you're here. And so this is for Amber. This is for you. For Amber, do you think you will ever write something that is not paranormal in some way?
I actually wrote a book called The Brotherhood that is not paranormal. It was kind of like a thriller spy book. And then because I kind of wanted to mess it or change it around a little bit, I kind of changed it into a dystopian, and I'm still sitting on that book wondering if it'll ever be published. So maybe someday. The magic's just the fun part, but it's also a lot of work because you have to go through all the effort of creating a magical system. So when I did write a contemporary book that didn't have magic and I didn't have to do world building, it was so easy and so much faster. And sometimes you just want easy and fast. So if I ever get to the point where I'm just burned out on magical systems and all the work that comes with them and world building, then maybe.
That sounds fair, because it is a lot of work. Definitely is a lot of work.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, you have a question now. Jackie, how do you feel when you found out that Amazon wanted to buy your book? And that is from Jessica as well. Hi, Jessica. She's like on top of things. Good job, Jessica.
I'm excited she's here and asking us things. Yeah, that was pretty exciting moment. That phone call was kind of odd because at first she called my old agent, of course, and then he connected with me and said, hey, you know, this person has called and you should connect with this person. So we both, you know, got the information and we connected. But at first she was only calling to say, well, I really admire this series, and I wanted something new and fresh and different from you, like that you haven't self-published. And through the conversation, I was like, well, I don't have anything because I'm working on this series right now and there's 3 books in it. And through that conversation, she was like, oh, you already done book 2? And I said, yeah. And she's like, well, then all of a sudden she was like, well, you know what, forget it. I want to make you an offer for this series. So that was pretty shocking, that moment, because I thought we were just going to chit chat about future projects possibly. And then all of a sudden, bang. So then she came back to me, I think, in a couple of days with the final offer, and we went from there. So that was exciting. It was fun. I totally did not expect that to happen. I did not expect it to happen. So
had she even read them before that happened?
She had read book 1. She had found it online and read it and really loved it. And that's when she got a hold of my old agent and asked her.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, so it's really crazy. Yeah. All right, so now we have another question here from Jessica again. Like, I would miss this with two of my fave authors. Oh, you're just so sweet, and that's just so lovely. And thank you, by the way. Jessica made us this lovely banner that is up on YouTube for this event, so I'm pretty excited about that.
She made my blog, like, all of the fancy cuteness that's my blog. She totally put it together for me. Jessica's amazing.
Get out, really? She did.
And it really looks really nice. It's like magical and purple, which are like, purple's my favorite color. So
I know, I love purple too. I don't know how she telepathically knew that, but
it's my favorite color. So anyway, so Jessica has another question. How has being an author changed the way you read books? Yes, actually. Especially, I can definitely tell if somebody's a plotter or a pantser, and usually the pantsers kind of bug me because I'm like, you didn't give us enough hints that this was coming beforehand, and it kind of knocks you out of your zone, your reading zone. And then I don't, with the plotting, usually, kind of like when they're going to have certain beats and when they're going to hit those beats. And so it kind of takes a little bit of the surprise out of it. It's even more apparent to me when I watch movies, because then I'm starting to analyze it, like, oh, okay, this is the dark moment of the soul, and oh, this is the moment when everything changes, and oh, and and my husband's like, you just watched the movie, and I'm like, the only reason for this character to be in this plot is if they're the bad guy. They're obviously the villain. And he's like, really? Would you really just ruin this for me? You know what I mean?
That's so funny. I'm so glad you do that, because I drive my family crazy doing that too. It's like they hate watching movies with me now because it's all like, oh, that was the what is it? Pet the dog moment, and that was the moment of traveling into the world, the new world. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm mixing up my lessons with James Scott Bell as well as Save the Cat, because he has this thing in movies. It's called the pet the dog movement. I guess it's when you.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's really close. Like in the beginning of the story, when you're gonna have a really bad character, you have him stop. Like even if he's a villain, even if he's like a murderer, you have him stop and do one kind of movement where it's like a sweet, kind gesture, so that people know they're still human. Like, for example, they might be like in a they might be not a terrorist, but like in a terror-filled situation where they're running and shooting people. And then there's a kitten in the tree, and they stop in all the bullets flying around to save the kitten, and then go on with the war. And then it's like a moment for that character.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's fun.
Yeah, I can imagine they get a lot of those in Dexter. Not that I've ever watched that.
Oh, yeah. Exactly.
I can't handle like trying to put myself in a murderer's shoes, even if he's doing it for the quote unquote right reasons. So it just gets
very apparent in
I don't do horror.
Oh, I forget oh my gosh. Breaking Bad was filled with those moments, because he's literally making crack, but he had all these moments where he was, very gracious and kind and doing things for his family, and you knew that he was doing it for his family. It was a very odd position to be in watching that show, because you were like, I can't believe I'm actually, cheering for a bad guy,
Yeah.
So it's the same kind of thing, but it's kind of cool. So
do we have any other questions we've missed?
Yeah, I've got lots here, so I'm just gonna go down and click that one off. You have to click those little stars up in the corner so people can find the answers. Here's another one. Okay, Jacqueline, how did you feel? Oh no, that one we've done. Okay, what book have you just finished? Oh, it moved on me. Wait a second.
And what book are you reading next?
Oh, okay. So for reading, okay. What did I just finish? I finished Jandy Nelson's I'll Give You the Sun, which I loved. I really loved that. It was really different, and she has a really great, authentic teen voice, and I was just loving on that book like crazy. What book have I just started? My goodness, I have a bunch of things that I'm reading right now because I can't seem to like just read one thing. But I actually just cracked this open today, and I bought this literally because I love the cover. Don't you love this?
Isn't that adorable?
Isn't that adorable?
It is adorable.
I didn't even read the back of it. This is how well this book was marketed. I didn't read a thing. I just looked at that and I went, I am taking a chance on that because I love that cover so much.
I did that with the Red Queen.
Oh yeah.
It's like a white background with a crown, and the crown's dripping blood. And I was like, I must have that book. I must have that book.
Like you had the cover, and you have to have it. And so anyway, I cracked it open today, and I read the prologue, and I must tell you that I am so in love with this book. I'm going to share the opening line because I just think it's one of the best I've ever read. So this author's getting some props here. I hope that they're happy. So I just think this is so cute. Love stopped at the town of Grimbaugh, weary and limping on a twisted ankle. I've been trying to help people, she said, struggling out of her dirty sneakers, and no one is listening to me. So it's actually love talking. Isn't that cute?
Oh, yeah.
So she's like been trying to make people fall in love and be happy, and they're not getting it.
She's like Cupid.
Yeah.
Wearing dirty sneakers.
Wearing dirty sneakers. I just got a twisted ankle. And I just thought it was so adorable. I was like, oh, I'm so gonna read that book, like cover to cover. Yeah.
I just read Phobic by Courtney Pearson, who's actually a friend of mine. And I was a little nervous because the cover is very, very creepy. It has this girl, and she's kind of holding her hair like this, and then her eyes are just like black around her eyes. And I don't do horror, so I was really like, I don't know if I could read this book, but it was creepy and scary, but I could sleep at night, which is kind of, and I could shower without locking the door and checking outside, like every 5 seconds, like I heard a noise, what was that? You know, like you have to wait till your husband gets home so that you have somebody to beat up the bad guys if they come. So that's the one that I just read, and it was really cute. I liked it, so.
Oh, that sounds like a really good one. Sounds like something I need to read. I have another friend who absolutely loves horror too, so she'd probably be into that one.
Yeah, I don't do horror if I can help it. So
she actually writes it, so it's her avenue. So hey, Elise, shout out to you too. So hold on a second. How much research did you have to do for which song? Sorry, and Lumiere. So you can go first.
Okay, so which song? I grew up in Utah, so there's no like sailing in Utah really. Well, you know, big ocean sailing kind of things. And I didn't know a lot about boats, and so I had to do a lot of research about, you know, boats and what starboard and port and all of those phrases meant. And I had to do research into a lot. I did research singing because people assume that because I wrote a book where the magic is based off singing, that I sing, and I don't. I'm a terrible singer. Like I'm the person that you don't sit by at church because I'm totally tone deaf. I'm a terrible singer, and I'm okay with that. But so I had to research a little bit about singing, and let's see, I had to research, you know, just trying to get like how the geography is placed in like the real world. Like if you've got, you know, mountain system by the ocean, then in front of that mountain system is going to be really green and lush, and on the other side of that is a desert, you know. So there's certain things that's the geography create climate and vice versa, and that kind of stuff. I remember doing that. But I mean, I wrote that book back in 2007, so it's hard to remember all the details of it. But anyway, those are a few things that I had to do.
Sounds good. For Lumiere, I had to do a lot of research about X-ray machines, early X-ray machines, of course, because, you know, it's kind of, the whole thing is based on that and the struggle of her, you know, trying to find the illuminator, which would have been like the first X-ray machine. And that's kind of how the book started. The idea for it started was I listened to a speaker who, Dr. Deborah Davies, and she wrote a book, which I always mangle the name of, but it was something like The Truth About the Secret War on Cancer or something like that. And she used to work for the Cancer Institute, and she found a box in the archive full of information that had proven that they knew that radiation caused cancer back in the 30s. And that really fascinated me, listening to her speak. And then I ended up going and doing more research, because she had said how powerful the early X-rays were and how they like filled the whole room with that radiation, and anybody within it was radiated, and it was like 20 times the power we have now and stuff like this. And I was like, oh my gosh. And of course they didn't know what they were doing. They just thought they were doing the thing. And so I did all that research, and that was fascinating and really kind of scary. And then I had to do a lot of Victorian research. Like I love the Victorian era, so I knew a lot of things, but I had to get things just right, like parts of dresses and pieces, what they were all called.
Yeah. I had to do a lot of research on muskets, because my witches, I'm like, I'm sick of swords. Why is it always swords? So mine are just kind of right on the cusp of kind of a industrial evolution. So in revolution. And so it's kind of based off like Salem.
Oh, that's cool.
Witch trials, because I wanted that resonance. So anyway, yeah, I had to do a lot of the same time period stuff.
Yeah, and you have to figure out how to load the gun and how to hold the gun. And
yeah, I actually shot a few of them too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, without a ball in them, because I don't know. I don't think we even had them, but just like, and the smoke that comes up. I mean, they have this plume of smoke that comes up. And I mean, if you think about a battle where 1,000 guys are shooting those, it would just be so smoky. You know, I don't even know that you'd be able to see for that long. I can't imagine. They'd be all coughing. How can you hide? You'd be like trying to hide behind a tree coughing.
Yeah. How would you see who you're shooting? You know, like, yeah. It would be bad. The same thing I went on a search for the first illuminator, and there's a medical museum here in Kingston, Ontario, and they actually had one. And so they sent me pictures of it when I was writing. And so last summer, Seth, my son, and I went on a trip cross country, and we stopped there and got pictures of me pointing at it. And
that's cool.
Yeah, really cool.
I visited a few historic farms from that time period. I did that too. I visited some in upper state New York and some in Utah. And, you know, they didn't, you know, some of the things that they just don't cross your mind. Like, they didn't have closets because they didn't need them. You know, you had one change of clothes if you were lucky. Why would you need a closet? You know, you had a broom. You didn't have a vacuum and dust mops and, you know, cleaning chemicals. You had a bar of soap and some rags, and that was, you know, so you didn't need a broom closet. And just some of the way that they would build, like they would have a baby and they'd put a lean-to on, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
And they'd have 2 bedrooms, one for the girls and one for the boys. And the boys, the more you had, the more they filled up the bedroom, you know? You'd have 4 kids in one bed.
For sure. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Even my mom was raised that way. She raised her whole life sleeping with her 2 sisters in the same bed.
Yeah.
You have to really get along, eh? It'd be a long night if you didn't.
Especially if one of your siblings was a bedwetter.
That would not be good. No, not at all.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we're done with that question.
Yeah, moving right along.
Okay. Do you write bios for your characters? If you do, how much do you go into them? I'll let you go first on that one.
Okay. So with most of my books, I do plot my novels. I use Save the Cat and Save the Cat Strikes Back, and then I plot them out in, is it Scrivener or Scrivener? I never remember how to say that.
No,
anyway, but it has note cards in it. For those of you that aren't writers, it has note cards, and you fill out the note cards, and then I just always put what beats I'm supposed to hit. So I always plot those out. For my characters, they're usually pretty cardboard cut out in the beginning, and I write very skeletal. So I've finished a first draft and doubled it in size, just because I've added so much. So, and I jump around a lot. I don't write in order. So right now, the book that I'm writing is Winter's Heir, Daughter of Winter. Still tossing those names out. I'm not sure which one we're going to go with. But I wrote I started writing it about 2/3 of the way into the book, like near the end, 2/3 of it through, and wrote almost up to the last scene. Then I went back and wrote the first chapter, and then I just kind of hit and miss in between with all of the ideas that I'd had, you know. And it's like I write the idea through and then move on to the next one. So I don't connect them until the end. So I'll have this huge knotted mess that is my first draft, and then I go through and add and put all of the characters in. And so my characters usually start out pretty cardboard. I don't at this point, I know, like, I've written almost 30,000 words on Winter's Heir, and I know their hair color, and I have an idea of where I want it to go, but it could still change. Like right now, I use the Hartman's personality scale, and right now my main character is Ellis, and I'm thinking she's a white yellow, but that could change, you know, depending on the story. So my characters are kind of, it's like the story comes first and then the characters, and I go back and add all those details and flesh it out. So, and I'd say that's pretty accurate for most of my books.
Wow, that is pretty involved. I guess for me, I use Save the Cat too. Isn't that wonderful? Like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I have done a little template for Save the Cat that fits novels better than movies, for me anyway. And I like to try to figure that out. And I also do this other thing called a plot plate or a plot clock on a circle. And I try to figure out, I actually do, like, according to, like, Save the Cat, I do, like, 12 o'clock is the action starting till 3 o'clock, and you travel into the unusual world. You break to the new world, or the conflict happens and you go somewhere else. And then from 3 to 6 is trying to get to the target, to the achievement. So your 6 o'clock is your crisis that you hit, that it's not going to work. And then 7 o'clock is basically your darkest moment when you think, oh, I'm done. And then 8 o'clock is about when you figure out you get a new message from a mentor or from somewhere, and you're able to figure it out, and you have a new plan, and something comes to you and you get it. And so from there to a little bit 9.
Who's the author of that?
Pardon?
Who's the author?
Of what? This
book that you're talking about. Isn't it a book?
No, it's not. It's just something that I created on the.
You should write this book because I want it.
So then at about 9 o'clock, it's like, it'll be 9 or 10 on your book, but it's kind of like at 9 o'clock, whatever the conflict was at 3 o'clock that sent you on the journey, you should get the answer for at 9, approximately. And so then once it's kind of solved, and like the big battle or whatever, or you've got the answer and you're ready to go. And then from 9 to 12 is the chase to the end, right, to the solution. So it's like the battle scene, or the chase to the end, or the running after the lover, whatever your book is. And then by 11, you get what you need. And so 11 to 12 is your look at life after
your resolution.
A little glimpse of life after it's.
That is brilliant.
Yeah, so I do that on a huge big circle. I don't have it up right where we can see it, but I have a huge big circle, and I put sticky notes on it, and I literally do time beats in between, like 1 o'clock, or like, so 12 would be like 12:30, 1, 1:30, 2, 2:30, 3. If I have more steps than that in there, then I've probably, I'm boring my if I have 6 more really important things in there before they get to the conflict, I'm probably boring the heck out of my readers. Right. So I got to look at that balance and I say, okay, I don't need this and I don't need that, or I got to make this clearer.
So what you've basically done is you've taken Save the Cat and made it visual for those of us that are visual learners.
Exactly. And so I have it
visual. I'm a visual learner. I want this. Like, you have to do a blog post and then I can like totally steal it.
And then I stick the sticky note, and like I've done the beats in the half-hour time frames on purpose, because then I can see a balance, a swing, right? Like, you can be out a little bit. Like I said, sometimes it'll happen at 9 or 10, that's fine. But if you, like, literally, I know I have a problem in the beginning. If I can't, this is the first thing I do. I go, I know what 3 o'clock is. I know what the crisis is. I know when they're going into the new world.
And that was me. When I started the one I'm right now, I wrote the crisis first.
Right. And I
wrote the opening
from 12 to 3, no problem. And then signed. And then, so then your second act is literally from 3 to 9, but with 6 in the middle, right? So that's your midpoint. So I try to figure out my 6 o'clock. So when does everything not work out? It's going to not go right. What is that thing? So I find it and put the sticker on. And then I'm like, okay, when does it work out? When is this going to happen? I put the sticker on that event. And then I kind of, if I can start with 3, 6, 9. And I can start writing. And then as I do act 1, like I said, if it's too loaded on one side, like what'll usually happen is I'll do absolutely great from 1 to 3. And when from 3 to 6, it'll be like 3, 3:10, 3:11, 3:15, 3:30. Oh, finally it's 4 o'clock, and I'll have like way too many things in there. And then I'll realize, okay, either these aren't necessary or I need to shift that. I need to shift my 6 o'clock, or I need to shift my 9 o'clock. And so that creates a balanced plate. I used to teach it like a plate, like you fill your plate with food and you fill your reader with food. Mm-hmm. And you give them what they want. But so you filled out the quarters of your plate and they all needed to be balanced, right? Mm-hmm. If you're off balance, then you risk the chance of your reader really getting bored in one section and not wanting to move on. So it's really helped me to like rein back on things I don't need in there. And
no, I love that. I totally am going to steal that. Can I steal that?
You can steal that.
I will teach that at conferences. That's amazing.
Well, there's a lady who was teaching that, and I just want to be clear on this. I learned this and kind of put it together myself from Don Moss and James Scott Bell and Save the Cat and things like this. And I was doing like the plate thing. And then I realized, oh, it'd be better if I did time increments. And there was a lady also in Florida who was teaching that around that. And I didn't.
And I like the clock too, because 12 and 6 mirror each other in the books.
Exactly.
And 3 and 9. Yeah, and 3 and 9 do as well. And that totally is like in the clock. I'm like, we need to do like a big thing and like.
I know. And you know what else is really weird? Is what if you really get it in sync. Mm-hmm. Literally 1 and 7 will mirror, and 2 and 8 will mirror. You can cross, like I learned that from James.
Make an asterisk.
Cross the whole thing if you've got it really figured out in time beats. It's a hard thing to do, but it's amazing when it happens. You're like, oh, I did it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So kudos to that lady as well in Florida, who is also like, I guess we came to the same revelation, and she teaches it as well. So,
right.
But I should do a blog post on mine, how far I've developed it further with, the things that I've learned, because I've definitely developed it way further and, make it very intricate now for writing in. I also do a thing I do this thing because I have a belief system that all characters in books follow the characters within the Wizard of Oz. All great books. This is just my opinion.
Okay. So
I always look and do a check mark thing when I get going. And I'm like, do I have a Dorothy? Well, clearly I have a protagonist, right? Who is this and this and this. Do I have a Tin Man? So do I have somebody with the brains? Do I have a scarecrow? Do I have someone who has the biggest heart? Do I have a lion? Do I have somebody who needs courage or is courage, provides the courage? And do I have the Wizard of Oz? Do I have that person, you know, that is going to be the mentor that provides that information? Do I have the flying monkeys? You know, because you always have the villain, the witch, and then you have the flying monkeys that also help the witch.
Minions.
I figure it all out, right? And I make sure that I have most of those characters. You don't need all of them, but it's interesting sometimes when you look at books you really love and you try to do that, you will say, oh, yes, there's a person who didn't need a heart, but was the heart for that character's support. And there's the one that provided her the courage, or there's the one that was most courageous, right? So to me, all of them fit that way. So I always try to make sure I figure that out too, and make sure that I have a balance and that those components are being portrayed within my book in some form of theme or measurement or expression. So those are the two things that I teach when I do classes. And that's what I do. And then I write a book. Try to anyway.
That's awesome.
All right. So I have a question here on, maybe you know how to pronounce this last name. Buttars?
Butters is what I would say.
Me too. Okay. So this is MR Butters' question. So I'm going to click on it. What are the best sources you found for learning story structure and plotting? I think we just said that, but we can maybe talk a little bit more about that. Definitely Save the Cat. You need to read those books for sure if you're a writer, I would say. What do you say?
Those are the ones that I use. I've read a few others. One of the ones that helped me was 2K to 10K. I can't remember who wrote that though, right off the top of my head. But that one more, I mean, first of all, she sold me on Scrivener, which I might be pronouncing it wrong. Just move along.
I think it is Scrivener. People,
is it Scrivener? I don't know. Well, it's like one of those words that I read, but I never hear anybody really say it out loud. So anyway, so I think Scrivener as a plotting tool itself is super helpful. I've heard the one that Take Your Pants Off is supposed to be really good.
I've not heard of that one. I like that one.
Yeah, and I've heard that one's really good, and it's on my TBR list. So hopefully I'll get to that one this year, but I'm gonna have to wait until I'm done plotting, because when I plot, I don't usually stop plotting, because it's like you have this forward momentum, and you stop, it's really hard to get that momentum back. So when I'm plotting, I don't usually break to do other things. So anyway, yeah, but those are the plotting ones that I can think of.
I would add to that Donald Moss's writing the breakout novel. That's kind of like author's Bible for writing, and it comes with a great, it doesn't come with it, you have to buy it separate, but it has a great notebook, workbook that comes along, and it'll take you through exercises to push you to write better characters, to write better scenes. One of the great things that Don always does in his classes, which I like to check myself on, is to take a scene with a lot of dialogue in it.
Right.
And then remove absolutely all tags and movements. So it is just literally dialogue, bing, bang, bing, bang, bing, bang, bing. And what you will find, which I always laugh like crazy in class, because I've taken his class 3 times now and I still get caught on this, but you will often find that if you take an entire scene, so 3 or 4 pages, and you do this, authors will often have a great snappy dialogue exchange. And then for some reason we go off and we tell somebody flipped their hair, or they breathed, or they did something, and literally to pick back up again, we'll repeat that dialogue. We'll have him say it again, or we'll have him say it in a different way. And then they kind of have a bit of an exchange again that's similar, and then they'll go into some new conversation, and then that movement thing will happen again, and you'll repeat yourself again. And it's so hilarious when you find it, when you pull it all out, and your conversation basically goes like, "You've got to be kidding me. No, I'm totally not kidding. You are a liar. I am not a liar." Then there'll be a bunch of movement, and then it says, "You are a liar. I am not a liar. you've got to be kidding me. And you're like, oh my gosh.
I tend to do that in my first drafts too, where you have like the same information is being relayed like 2 or 3 different ways, and you combine them and use the best out of each. And so I usually catch those in my second draft. I think another really good tool is to have a good editor. I mean, I have a great content editor, and I pay a lot of money for her, and she is worth every penny. So, and I know it's really hard when you first start out to maybe afford, if you're not with a traditional publisher, a content editor. You can trade, you can sell your firstborn. There's always drug trafficking, selling your body.
Oh my.
I kid. Have a garage sale. I don't know.
Yeah,
I could afford to go to my first writers conference. We didn't have the money to go, and I had a garage sale. I sold things, and I took up a little side job, to try and get enough money to go to it. So I think it's worth saving up and doing it if you can. If there's any way you can it's like an investment. You get back what you give. So
right. And I've done the same. And good editors cost a lot of money, period. If you think that they don't, then you're wrong.
Yeah. I've used cheap editors, and it was a waste of money.
Yeah, you'll be hiring a second and third editor if you don't pay for quality editing. That's what I have learned.
Sometimes you can get somebody that's new and they're trying to just start out. So sometimes you can do that and kind of start out well, but then again, they don't have the experience yet.
Right.
So you do get what you pay for.
Yeah, exactly. I would also add to that The Writer's Journey by Christopher Vogler. If you haven't read that, that's a really great book. It talks so much about kind of those themes that I was talking about. Kind of fits into that Wizard of Oz thing I did. But it talks about themes of characters, different types of characters that the world connects with because of the familiarity to all of us in our own lives and what they strive for and why and their motivations. It's a really good book. And he's a really good teacher. If you get a chance to ever sit down with those guys, there's a thing called Story Masters through Free Expressions. It's a weekend with Christopher Vogler, James Scott Bell, and Donald Moss, and they all speak they split it up in 3 for the weekend, and it is phenomenal. So if you get the chance, anybody, you're a writer out there, I highly recommend.
Well, and I don't know that you can ever stop learning. I've been doing this since, I've been wanting to do this forever, but doing it like consistently and working really hard at it since 2005. And I still learn things. Sometimes you have to dig a little deeper to try and get the nuggets out, but I still learn things.
Absolutely. Like I said, I've gone to Don Moss week-long class 3 times. And talk about scrape up money for that. Let me tell you, that's an investment, but it's so worth it. He has pushed my work like over the edge, like really improved my work so much. So yeah, I think it's worth it to have a great editor, and it's worth it to do some courses on craft for sure.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the next question. Trying to find something we haven't answered yet.
Jessica said we need to write a book together.
I know, I saw that. I just went past that. Yeah, that would be really fun.
That would be fun. I think that if you're going to write a book with someone else, then you need to go somewhere warm and tropical and just hang out for a month and write a book together. That's my idea of writing a book with someone.
I think that sounds like a great plan. I don't know how we're going to finance that, but I think that's a really good plan. And I think we should go for at least a month, don't you? It takes at least a month.
Oh, man. Maybe we should just move in together.
Far, far away.
I know. Leave all the husbands with the kids, and we'll just be the money pants,
Yeah.
We'll just provide for our husbands.
Wouldn't that be great? That would be amazing.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if I can handle my husband not working.
No, but we could get them a side job, something they really enjoyed. They could just.
That's true. My husband wants to be a professional scalper. like the guy that buys tickets, like season tickets, and then sells like individual games at a markup.
That's illegal in America because that's illegal here. But
if you have your season tickets, you can sell your season tickets on eBay.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
like, yeah. So, and maybe he doesn't, I don't know, but yeah. Anyway.
We can't stand on the street corner and scalp. That's the problem, I guess. So. No, I think we're like talking way about writer dreams here right now. But anyway, it would be great. Okay, let's see what else we got going on out here. So I'm looking to see, I guess Tracy Bender just said, I thought the singing angle was very unique.
Oh, thank you. That was a lot of fun. I wanted witches that didn't chant. I wanted to kind of twist that and flip it around. So instead of evil chanting, my witches sing.
Wonderful. That's brilliant. That's good. That's what makes things fun.
I like that.
For sure. Let's see here. Where else? We got something. It says, oh, Jessica wants us to come to Florida to write.
Done and done.
Yeah, I'm good.
I'm in Idaho right now. I would love to go somewhere with a beach. I love beaches.
Going into the Canadian winter season, I'm so prepared to just go live in Florida for a while.
Yep. Yeah, that's here too. We get the wind in the winter, like all winter long, the wind just blows. So it's you know, it's not crazy cold. Like the coldest we get is like 0 degrees usually. But when the wind's blowing 60 miles an hour, holy cow, it doesn't matter how many layers you have on, the wind just cuts through them. So
I'm not looking forward to, ice and snow and months of it. I really don't like it anymore. When I was a kid, I loved it, but I'm done with it now.
I'm good until Christmas. I enjoy it up until Christmas, but after Christmas, let's just be done. It's time just to be done. So
yeah, lately we haven't been getting snow. Like we used to get snow like at Halloween and all the way through. And lately, knock wood, for some reason, we haven't been getting snow until almost Christmas Eve, which is really weird.
Probably global warming.
Yeah, exactly. It's for no good reason that this is happening. But anyway, so then it's kind of nice to have it on Christmas Eve, and we want it till New Year's Day. And then it's kind of like, okay, I'm over it. That was fun. Let's stop.
I know. I wore my boots and my cute, like, warm sweaters, and now I'm ready for my flip-flops again.
Exactly. I know. I wrote this whole thing on Facebook about how much I hate fall because it's like the death of summer, and I have to give up my sandals and my summer dresses and stuff. And everybody was all over me going, oh, come on, we love fall. Fall's wonderful, blah, blah. And I was like, in what universe is summer not the best?
Yeah. I do love fall. I've got to admit I love fall, but I can skip spring and summer, or spring and winter altogether. We can just, other than when the flowers start blooming and they smell really nice, but the mud and spring just teases you. One day it's like lovely and the next day it's freezing cold, and not a big fan of that.
A lot of allergies in spring.
So Jessica's asking, what book have you just finished? We answered that. What book are we currently reading? I'm not reading one. And what book are you reading next?
Yeah,
I want to read the next Melissa Meyer book, her Cinder series. I think her last one just came out, and I love those books. So I really am excited to read that one. And I guess the closest one I could say, the one that I just barely finished, was Sarah J. Maas's book, the whatever, her Heir of Fire, the last one that came out, the 4th book, which I was kind of annoyed because I thought that was the last one in the series. So I've been putting off reading the whole series until that one comes out because I'm that reader that doesn't, I wait. And I'm like, this isn't the end? What? There's some serious anger issues going on. Me and Sarah, we're going to have a little get together. She's going to give me her manuscript. She doesn't know this yet.
It's going to happen in Florida.
Yeah. There you go. We're going to take her out.
I could swear that she was supposed to be at an event I was at last year because her books were all there on the signing table. And people teased me and they said, oh, she was here. She did one breakout. You missed her. And I don't know whether they were telling the truth or not. And I was so mad because I was like, I wanted to see her. So
yeah, I know. She came actually to Utah, which, it would have been about 4 hours for me to drive down to it. maybe 3, depending. And I didn't know about it until I saw everybody's pictures, and I was like, I would have gone to that.
I know, isn't that making mad?
I know, and they had another really good author that I would have gone to, and I don't even remember who it was now. Anyway, but
I have another question. Okay, out of all of your books, which one has your favorite cover? That's hard.
I like your Luminaire one. That's my favorite of yours. My favorites between these two. You see them, and me in the middle.
Beautiful covers too. It's really hard. Your artwork is great.
Yeah, I love my cover artist. She's gotten really busy. She's doing a lot of games, the gaming world. So she does the cards for the games, and she's really busy. So it's like I have her under contract for the last book in my series, and then she told me that she doesn't want to do any more book covers, and I was just like, no. Like I've begged. I've like been like, please, I'll do anything. And she's like, nope, not gonna happen. I'm like, oh man.
Ew, that's awful.
I know, isn't that so depressing? I know. I get cover artists, and I have to work really hard to find them, and that's what I do. I find them when they're new, and they don't charge as much because they're still trying to break in. And then they do a few covers for me, and all my other author friends are like, holy cow, they're amazing. And then they go and use them, and then they get well known enough that these other companies start coming in and hiring them to do things, and then I'm left out of the cold. See.
So does that mean you're not going to share any more with me?
Yes. That's what that means. I'm going to have a book cover done, and I'm going to be like hiding it. They'll be like, who's your artist? I'm like, I don't know. It was some like guy that was like driving by, and I just gave him a paintbrush and let him have fun.
That's terrible. Okay, I think this one is my favorite. I love that one. I just love
that. I do. I love that one.
But I also
saw that one, and I was like, oh, I want that book.
I also really love this one. I love the intensity of her eyes. I love the color blue. I don't know what that color is, but I like purpley blue. I just love it.
Yeah.
I also love the yellow one in this series, the third one, but I don't have it physically to hold up. If only she hadn't. Oh my gosh, I love the yellow one. And it's interesting because when I chose that photo, my cover artist didn't think it was going to work. It was too light, she thought. And then it turned out very intense. So she did brought it around. So, okay, very good. What has been your favorite book of 2015? So hard.
I'm going to go with this one. Can we plug our books?
Shameless plug.
Shameless plug. This is an amazing book with an amazing plot and amazing characters. Notice the amazing cover.
Okay, then I'm going to go with this one. Right here. Yeah, that's my favorite book because I spent like all of 2015 writing it.
I know. It's kind of like all babies are cute, but our babies are the cutest. You know?
Yeah, it's like, it took a long time to get this done and, right and out there and without errors.
Yes. This book about freaking killed me. Like, this book, I started writing this book when my son had a lot of health problems. And he was in and out of the hospital, and it was an awful time in my life. So this book is like, it was like one of those projects that happens, and I'll always associate it with all of those things that were going on. So anyway.
Oh, it was like the light at the end of the tunnel for you, that kind of thing.
It was just, it was a lot. Actually, it was like, I couldn't even write for a long time just because all the joy had just been sucked out of my life, and it's really hard to write when you don't have any, my creativity was gone. Like, I would sit down to write and I'd be like, I don't want to do this. I do not want to do this. So this book took me a long time to write, and it was a lot of work. So anyway, and I love it because it's done. There were points where I'm like, I'm never going to finish this book. I'm never, ever. And I got stuck in the middle of it. Right. And I always get stuck in the middle. I don't know why I get stuck in the middle, but I got stuck in the middle. And yeah, anyway.
Those are muddles. That's what I call them, not middles. They're muddles.
I know.
You don't know what you're doing.
Yep, exactly. It's like the book I'm writing right now. I have the middle, I have the beginning and the end. And the middle, well, I do have the midpoint, but between the first third of the book and the midpoint is where I'm like, I don't know. You know?
Plot clock, sister. I'm telling you, it'll solve your problems.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to talk to you more about that after we're done here.
The middle, the muddle middle, like it does. It helps. It's But well, that's I'm really thrilled that you got through that book and went on with all that stuff going on. That's kudos to you, because I know that can really, like you said, you have an incident like that and the joy is like sucked out of you. It's really difficult to be.
Yeah. I was in survival mode. It was like take care of my kids and deal with medical problems, and that was my life. So that was all there was to it for quite a while, because it was one of those things where it was like we would think it would better and then it would get worse again, and then we think it would get better and it would get worse again. And anyway, but
yeah, that's tough.
Yeah. So here's another question. Do you set a word count, or do you stick to it, or go over or under? I'll let you answer that first. Word counts.
Word count. Okay, click the select button in the middle of that question so it goes to the top.
I don't have a select button. I'm not an admin.
Oh, okay. I'm trying to find where it is then. So word count. I need to go down. Oh, here we go.
You could have to do a different one if you need to.
Here it is. I found it. I don't set a word count. That's why my books are so long, I think. Well, my If Only series, which is really interesting, is that this used to be all one great big honking huge book. So it was like, I don't even know how many words. I think it was like 250,000 words at one point. It was just insane. And so that's part of the reason that my agent just kind of looked at me with like I had three heads and said, I don't know what we're going to do with this, you know? Yeah. And then I was like, either going to have to cut it back or whatever. And then when I decided to break it up and actually make books out of it, it made me very happy, because I was going to have to get rid of the mystery thread, which I think is one of the best parts of the book is the mystery thread. Mm-hmm. I was going to have to consider getting rid of Aubrey's point of view, which is the antagonist. And I thought it was very cool to be in the brain of the antagonist and her evil, nasty ways, and, you know, feel her heart beating and be right in her head. And I didn't want to give that up. So, you know, that was problematic, and I don't think it would be as good a book as it is if I had gotten rid of those elements to the book. The mystery definitely would have fallen down with the mystery voice. I could have still done it through Kyla, but it just added another layer. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the only time I've run up against word count was that time. And my agent just said, you need to shelve this book till you figure out what you're going to do. And I did. And then I decided to self-pub it. And I'm really glad that I didn't ditch all that other stuff. I try to be a little bit conscious of maybe 80, 90,000 words as a max, only because I know any kind of publishing place isn't really interested in anything quite epically over 90,000, unless your name happens to be J.K. Rowling's or Stephen King.
Yeah. If you write epic fantasy, you can do more, or, you know, high fantasy.
Sure. Yeah. Like, that's what I mean. Like, if you kind of have, but even as a new sale, if we weren't self-publishing, if we were trying to do it in a different way, I know that they literally roll their eyes at over 100,000 words.
Yeah, my publisher for my first book, my Witch Song, was 100 and something, and they would have been okay, I think, with 105, but they didn't want it much longer than that. So, yeah. Which my last book, I mean, Summer Queen is 115 or something. It's a big book. And, you know, I as far as word counts, I can usually guesstimate how many words a book's going to be. And I'm usually pretty close. And then I give it to my editor, and sometimes she nails me to the wall because I am a skeleton writer. So I write really, really, you know, abrupt, and my intensity is like always up. And she's like, you know, you need the calmer moments. And so she usually makes it longer. So for instance, I did my novella was like 20,000 words. And by the time I was done with her edits, it was 42.
Wow.
So I more than doubled it in size by the time she was done with it.
So you're an author that does kind of bare bones, and then you layer on extra.
Yes. And then I add on, and then she's like, and you need more. And see, that's the thing for me is, and part of the reason I don't do more is because I'm like tired. You know what I mean? Like, I've already written 85,000 words, you know, let's not add more. And Summer Queen was the same way. I think I had it like at 100, and then I bumped it up to 120, and then cut it back down to like 115. So, I mean, it's a big book, but my other ones are all mostly around 100.
I'm the opposite. I write way too much, and I have to cut. So I've been trying to train myself to just not have to do all that extra work of cutting, and be more succinct. And when I'm writing, and it's not really working, but I'm trying. So I'm kind of the opposite, but it's so funny because I don't think I can write a really short book, because I decided, it wasn't word count, I decided like pages. I got this ridiculous notion that my romance that I'm writing, my Heartmender Society that I'm hoping is going to be out like by February, hopefully. My women's fic romance, I said it's gonna be 200 pages. 220, no more.
Yeah.
It's 498 or something. So that plan failed. But now I'm rewriting and I'm cutting things, but it's still not going to be 220 pages.
Oh man, don't you love that? You're like, see, and that's the thing is, because I mean, I'm a hybrid author. I've been traditionally and indie published. And, you know, people are like, but you don't have deadlines, you're indie. And I'm like, yeah, I do, because I have two editors, content and, you know, copy editors. And I have a formatter, and I have to get on their list at certain times because they block out time for you. And if you don't get in that block, you're waiting 7 months for them to get to your book, you know? And it's like, you can't, you know, it's insane because, yeah, I do have deadlines. My deadline for, I have to have my draft turned into my editor. My final draft turned into my editor for Winter's Air on January 1st.
Wow.
And I'm at 30,000 words now. So and I'm thinking I'll probably be, I don't know, somewhere about maybe 90 is what I'm guessing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, you know, it's very true. Like, I think self-pub is more stressful because you can't call up the editor and beg for more time because it's you. It's all you. So it's like, if you're running behind, you're just looking at your calendar going, oh, I had her block off this time. I have to be done. I can't, like you said, you know, I'll be waiting 6 months or 8 months for another block of time. So I must finish this book. And sometimes I'll be in that must finish book.
I know. I've told my kids and I've told my husband, I'm like, my book is due in 30 days. And it's going to, like, I can usually think, you know, it's going to take me X amount of hours to get that done. I can usually plan out about how much time it's going to take me to do it. And it's like, I'm going to have to work full time. Y'all are going to have to take care of yourselves, you know, fix your own food. The house is going to be a disaster. I'm editing, you know, and I do usually about once a year, we have a month where mom's editing, and unless your hair's on fire,
yes,
stay out of her office, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. I've actually I got a big calendar, the flip kind of on the desk kind of calendar, huge one. Yeah. And I have stickers to reward myself, and they're different color stars.
Oh, cute. Yeah, I got a gold star today.
I know, I do that. I'm like, okay, a pink star is 1,000 words. A yellow one is like 2,000 words done. A green one is 3. 5,000 is a gold one. And I'm just like, I figure it out how many days. I can usually write 1,500 to 2,000 words, no problem, in a day.
Yeah,
so
that's about me.
And then sometimes I get really on a roll and I can write up to like 3,500 to 5,000 in a day. But so I use like 2,500 as my average. And then I'll literally put the stickers on the calendar. And then at the end, I put a great big box. You are done today. This is over, done, draft, and and then I literally go and put the proper sticker of how many words I did in my color coding on that and do a tally at the end of each week, how many words I'm at. And I'm just like, logically 80,000 words I should be done in, whatever, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever it is, whatever it mathematically turns out to be.
Right.
Trying to do that to chase my own self into getting things done faster. But it's hard.
That's the way to do it. So do you see the question with Tanya Tingy? It says, how do you find a good cover artist? Or do you just sell it to the publisher and they pick someone? Do you have a say in who does the cover? I might have a young man who might do covers. Okay. So, and she has an artist in mind. So.
Well, it's always good to know good cover artists and new people in the biz, wouldn't you say?
Yes. I cover artists and graphic designers. And that's one thing too, is they're not always the same person. I learned this the hard way. So, because I do illustrations, right? And so my illustrator does the cover, and I used to just have them put the copy on it. And that was a bad idea. They didn't know how to do that. The layout is different. It's a different art form. It's kind of like the difference between writing cover copies, which is the blurb on the back of a book, versus writing the book itself. They're different enough that you kind of need somebody that's either really good at both, or you have to have two people. And so I have a graphic designer and I have my cover artist. For my first 2 books in the series, we got this one and this one. These were both done by Eve Ventru. And she doesn't, the last time I checked, she charges $5,000 for a cover now.
Yeah, and she's not even doing them. I
haven't seen her doing it, because I don't know many people that pay that much money for a cover. I mean, I don't even think the traditional houses pay that much. I don't know though.
No. I don't think so now.
Yeah.
That's a lot of books to sell to get that money back. That's a lot of money.
I mean, you're just starting out with, this, you're so deep in the red, it's really hard to make that back. So the rest of my covers are all done by Lara Seva, and this is one of hers as well. And these two are Lara Seva. And then Devin Doherty is my graphic designer, and he puts the text on. And he does a really good job with that. I have a series that I'm putting up on Wattpad. It's only going to be on Wattpad because it's the first series I ever wrote, and it's not something I feel comfortable actually publishing, but it's something that I feel like it has value, and I feel like as far as maybe finding an audience, it can do that on Wattpad. So the first book's free. I'm going to put the other ones up, and I have Michelle Argyle is going to do those covers for me. So I sent her some stock art that she may or may not use. We're in the process right now. And that's my first stock art cover.
Is she related to you? No, she's not related to you.
Her husband actually is, but it's very distantly. So a century and a half ago kind of.
Yeah.
So,
just the name hit me.
I know there's not a ton of Argyles around, so we're unique.
Yeah, there's not a lot of Garlicks either. Okay. So for me, I've had good and bad luck with cover artists, but mostly I've had people recommend people. With the Lumiere cover and Noir cover, I actually did that as a photo shoot myself. So it was exactly what I wanted, because I got the model and we did the photo shoot with a friend and stuff like that. So that one was a little different, that series. That went well. And then this series, we've just been playing with stock photos, but we've manipulated them very different. So you don't, even if somebody else used the stock photo, you really can't tell that I've used the stock photo. Right. As far as I know, nobody's used the ones I've used, but if they did, we've manipulated it very different. So that takes a talented cover artist. I use, for those covers, it's Summer Stein, and for my other covers, it was, oh my gosh, her name is escaping me. Just went blank. May I Design? Okay, there we go. Regina. Sorry, Regina. I just went, gone. So Regina Wamba does a really good job. And again, you got to be careful, because if you're starting out, so much in debt with the cover, you've got to make that back before you're making any money. And so that's a tough call. Like, it's a tough call. Like I agree. You can't be spending too much on a cover, because the covers are super, super important though. So you have to find quality within a reasonable amount of
I would say, honestly, I think the covers are as important as the writing, because if you have crappy covers, no one's ever going to read your writing.
That's right. They're your calling card to the world. They're the handshake to the world. It's like, here I am. Do you like me? And
covers sell books.
Yeah, they do.
So, and that's the thing too, is I've got a pretty good eye, and I've done, if you want to find good, if you're an author and you want good covers, go look at what other people in your genre that are selling well are doing. And not copy them, but get ideas from them.
Right.
So, and kind of, there's usually like a consensus, like it's going this direction, A lot of covers in high fantasy have some type of a weapon. If it's YA and girly, then it'll be a weapon with like swirls around it or something. So like Kristen Kishore's covers. And what are some other ones? I just slipped the Sarah Larson's covers. Those ones all have those kind of the same thing. Cinda Williams Shima, I don't know how to say her last name. Chima. And her covers it's the same thing. So a lot of high fantasy, that's some either a magical object or a weapon, and they're simple. I think that's another thing too, is you want your covers to be simple. They get too complex, it's just a mess.
Yeah, it's even when you're looking through stock photos and stuff, sometimes you'll find the most beautiful photo, and it'll be, a scene, and it'll be just exactly what you're thinking of. But then if you think of it in terms of putting text all over it, it's too busy. It's too, intricate. Less is more always. But it has to make some sort of impact too. Like when I was designing the Lumiere cover, like the focal point of the book is the necklace. So that's what I made the focal point of the book cover. It has to, you have one illustration, one freeze frame that has to give out enough information to your reader to make them want to enjoy that story. They have to know something about the story from your illustration.
Right. I think the 1, 2, 3 rule is a good rule, and I don't know if this rule actually exists because I made it up, but you have 3 things on your cover. And if you look at your cover, if you hold that up again, you've got the necklace, and you've got the girl, and you've got your title. 1, 2, 3. Right. And your 1 is going to be your biggest usually and most brightest item, which I would say your title. And then 2 is the necklace, and then 3 is the girl, and she's in the background, and she's darker, more muted colors. So the 1 is going to be your brightest, most visible thing, and it's going to go down in increments, 1, 2, 3. You can do more, but then you have to start, it gets more complicated. You have to start doing patterns, which I actually teach a class on cover design, and that would take like hours. So we won't get into that, but
yeah, I agree with you.
The rule of thumb is the 1, 2, 3 rule.
The other thing is like the line of your eye. Like you want to enter the picture and you want to exit, you want to have exit points, and you want everything connected. Like if you notice her hand goes up, touches this, goes down into the word. This arm is leading you into the word. So you want a visual track to go through the picture and have exit and an end.
What you're talking about is the shapes that are in the picture.
Exactly. And so your eye will follow those things. If you have like a whole bunch of stuff all over it, your eye doesn't know where to go.
It's just messy at that point.
It's confusing. So those are some thoughts. All right, I have another one here. Sorry, I wasn't able. This is Sharon Burr. Sorry, I was not able to join until now. That's all right. Welcome. I think all of your covers are beautiful, and you would not be able to tell that you did not spend as much on the new ones, which is true. That's what the goal is.
Yeah.
That is the goal, people. If you're in this business, yeah, quality, for what you can afford. And, you know, you're still going to pay money for good quality, but it's got to be redeemable quality, I guess I would say. Like, you've got to be able to make your money on it.
Right. I agree.
Or you're just writing, you know, for free for the joy of having these people read your stuff.
I know. I have a hard time when people say that, because I'm like, but you have bills too, and you still need to eat, you know, and how much happier are you going to be when you can do what you love to pay those bills instead of doing your day-to-day 9-to-5 job. So.
Well, and I think too, like, both of us have material available on Wattpad for free, you know.
Yeah.
So we cover both ends of the spectrum, you know, like there's samples there. I too am also putting a book out that I absolutely love that I wrote earlier. And I found it again in my archives when I got a new computer. And I was like, why did I never do anything with this book? I love these characters. I love this book. Like, what am I doing with this book? And then I thought, there's so many opportunities out there. Why would I have something sitting dead on my computer? So I decided I'm going to be putting that up on Wattpad as well, chapter by chapter. This, you know, I'm going to do it this fall. I guess it is fall. Soon-ish, I will be doing that. So yeah, I think that's great. And I hope to connect with a whole lot of readers there. And, you know, I think that's the great thing about Self-Pub. You can channel projects into different places where they fit best.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, a lot less stress and problems that way. Okay, next question. This is from MR Butters again. What is your research process? Where do you start? How do you find all the information? So I guess we kind of talked about research, but let's talk about where we found our information on this one. It's a good question.
Okay. So research-wise, I've gone to the libraries, and like for Witchfall, this book has a lot of Asian culture that's for inspiration. And I read a really, really dry book, and they talked about all kinds of interesting, because especially in high fantasy, there's a saying that God is in the details. And you don't have to be an expert at whatever you're writing about, but you have to put in little tidbits that are very, very detailed that make it seem like you are. And so, for instance, they talked about beaten walls, and that was a really interesting thing. So they take dirt and they put it in forms, and they literally beat the dirt until it is hard and compacted enough, and then they take the forms away and it forms a wall. And this is one of the ways that they build walls. And Pinterest, I use the Pinterest research for my covers. Right now, because I'm doing my Winter's Air book, that book is set in a place that's very similar to like Antarctica. And so I've been watching every documentary on the Arctic and Antarctica that I can get my hands on, you know. So I've actually called the search and rescue and asked to talk to somebody that trains dogs that chase criminals. I've asked them questions. I've talked to my pharmacist. That was so funny. I was talking to my pharmacist, and I need a drug, because he knew me and he knew that I wrote books because they actually sold my books at his pharmacy. And I'm like, I need a drug that will kill someone really fast without anybody knowing, and it's intravenous. So we're talking about drugs and this woman walks up like halfway through the conversation, and we're talking about killing people with antifreeze.
Oh my God.
And she's just like, what is good? She just like takes a step away and another step away.
She moves to the other side of the building.
Yeah. And then like in my book, somebody always gets hurt, and then you have to do research on hypothermia, research on drowning, what it feels like to drown. I don't know what, like, I've never drowned and died. I don't know what that feels like, you know? So I have to research what that feels like. And what does it feel like when you've dislocated a shoulder? How long does it take to heal? How long before you're ready to go into another, you know, sword wielding battle? That, all those kind of things, you know, and like an injury that's going to slow your character down, but it's not going to stop them. That's hard to pull off, because in real life, injuries like that would stop you.
Exactly.
So, anyway, lots of research.
Yeah. Places I go to research, well, all over the internet. But you got to look for real sources. Like, don't use Wikipedia. It's not necessarily the truth. So, I mean, it's the same rule as when I used to teach school. Wikipedia is not the main source, not the original source. So you got to go to the original source. I've done some crazy things trying to find information. The very first book I wrote was a Holocaust book, and it involved a Holocaust story, these two young girls and their journey. And it was so comical because I was writing it, you know, making it completely up and loosely, you know, checking it with history, but it wasn't necessarily within a camp, so I didn't have to follow the rules of the camp and all that kind of stuff. They were escaping. So I had them going through the woods. And at one point, I remember I was so bogged down with what would it have looked like? What grew in those woods? What would be bombed? What would still be living? It's 1945. What would the tracks of the train still be intact there? And I had them in a specific place, and I was like, I know nothing about this place. Like, I don't know what would have happened here. And I got stuck, and I was so mad. And I remember I was kind of like banging my head on the keyboard, and I looked up and I went, 2 kids being pushed in a wheelbarrow across Nazi territory or occupied territory, or whatever, going from, you know, Auschwitz to Vienna.
Yeah.
I hit it. And I just thought, what is going to come up? And you would not believe what came up.
Oh.
Short story. On wheelbarrow and pushed, and children. And it was a true life story from this man who was pushed home from a Holocaust camp by his mother in a wheelbarrow, him and his little sister, across Europe to get home, avoiding all kinds of problems. And I'm reading this story and going, oh my gosh, they're doing what I just made up, but they really did it. And I thought, I've got to find this man. And I just had his name. I Googled this guy. I found out he was a poet and a writer. He was an older gentleman, of course. I found out he was in Montreal, Canada. I got to his website after much research. I found a phone number. I called them on a whim, and I'm like, you don't know me, but 4
That's
hours
amazing.
later, I know, 4 hours later, I had a really good friend who still writes me constantly, and I write him too, and he knew everything. He knew how it smelled, what it looked like, what plants were live, what weren't. He directed me to, like, he was like, well, I think that was bombed at that area. I think that area might have been bombed, but here's how you find out. And he had me go to flight maps for the Army flight maps are now published in war museums and stuff. So then I got hooked up to that, and I found the flight maps. And then this one other guy used to be a bomber, and I talked to him on the phone, and he was like, well, you can't trust the flight maps completely. And I'm like, why? And he goes, because we lied on them. So because then the enemy wouldn't know where we were going. Like, some of them are the truth, and some of them are purposely lies. And I was like, I'll ever figure this out, you know? And he's like, well, you got to go here and look for this. So I ended up meeting a whole bunch of really cool people with great stories. And I actually got on my husband won a trip to Montreal not shortly after. And I called up Paul, the guy who wrote the original story. And we ended up having lunch together for like 3 hours and took photos and everything. And it was amazing to meet.
Did you ever publish that book?
No, I've never finished it. Isn't that awful? I started that book in 2007. It's been such a challenge to get everything right. And I want to make sure now, meeting Paul, it's even more intense that I get this correct, that I make it authentic enough, that it's possible, that it's truthful and accurate. And so I think that's held me up. But he writes me every year, about twice a year, how's that book coming? Da 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 da. And I'm like, oh no, I gotta get this done. But yeah, anyway, that's my research story.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. Hi, this is from Tanya. Hi, do you read other books not written by either of you and take notes on certain scenes to help with your own ideas? Oh my gosh, yes. I actually taught myself to write by reading people's works that I loved. And I honestly, I'm a color freak, I'm a visual freak, and I'm a teacher, former teacher. So I used to take colored, and I still have them here. I have my colored pens, blue, red, yellow, green. I also have my series of color highlighters, you see, in all the both 3 colors or 4 colors. And what I do is if I'm reading and I really love a passage, and like literally if a chapter 1 really works, I'm obsessed with chapter 1s because they're so hard to make good. And if I'm reading and I find one that just goes bang, 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 and it's succinct and it flies and it's got great pacing and the characters are, you know, the dialogue snapping, the characters are awesome, I go, how did that work? Why does that work? So I take out my 4 highlighters and I literally highlight dialogue in one color, like say orange. I highlight tags or movements in yellow. I do description of area or place, those lines in green. And then I do like character development lines, like internal stuff or development of character stuff in blue. And then I look at the pattern on the page. And I usually will see where it's like 2, 2, 1, 3, 2, 2, 1, 3, or something like that. And you can see where they're only spending the amount of time they really need and choosing those words so carefully to pull that off. And that's why the pace flows so well, so quickly, and you keep reading. But on none of the pages is any of those colors missing. And then I'll do that to my own work and I'll see I have no blue. There's no internal going on here at all. So there's no connection with the character. Or I have no, not enough green for dialogue or whatever. Or the dialogue's taking too long to happen. It's here and then there's like orange, blue, blue, green, orange, blue. Oh, there's some yellow over here. When I really started doing that, I taught myself to write more efficiently. I was able to see what I loved so much about it. I also do another one with pink and blue when I just love, when I'm reading a book and I just love the way that somebody used a very clean, brisk metaphor or simile or personification or one of those devices. I will make sure I do it in pink. And when I'm stuck, I will flip open the books I love to read the most and read some of the pink. And then I'll think, I can do better than that. I can do so much better. Like mine sucks. Mine is just not, it's not good. So then I won't use theirs, but they inspire me. They get me creatively thinking deeper. And then I will improve my own writing. But that's usually in second or third pass too. Or sometimes in the first pass when I really feel like I'm just repeating, like, sometimes you feel like you're repeating movements or tags and I'll be like, come on, you said that 3 times. But my brain is not going anywhere else. If I read those pink sections in other people's books, I'm like, wow, look at that. I can do better. So yeah, that's what I do.
I don't know that I really do. I am waiting. Are you hearing an echo?
Yeah. So you've got something else open maybe on your screen. Just close it.
I don't know. Is it now?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. We're good. Okay. So I have certain scenes that well, like for instance, the Forbidden Forest, that one was, I read The Forest of Hands and Teeth by Carrie.
Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah. And I actually hate horror. So I didn't love the book, not because it wasn't well written and that it wasn't an interesting book, but just because of the genre that it was. And what I actually, but I like, she was so good at certain things. I actually started using, I'm like, okay, I want to take the world that she created and put it in high fantasy. And then I read Sophie Jordan's Firelight, and I just loved the way she did her main character. And I actually was like, I want to write a character very similar to this. So I took The Forest of Hands and Teeth, and instead of a chain link fence that separates you from zombies, I have a magical barrier that separates you from a magical creature. And but the magical creature is kind of like the Pied Piper. So it calls girls, young girls, across this barrier all the time, and they're never seen again. And my character, the first chapter, is she crosses this barrier, and she's the only one that's ever made it back. And but now she's caught their attention, so they're after her. And that's my next series. Is this? It's called The Forbidden Forest. Is the name of the series. And so that's probably the only time where I've really totally like been so inspired by what someone else has done that has inspired me to make more ideas. And see, and that's the thing is, I think a lot of times as readers, where they'll say, I hated this book, I didn't like it, it was terribly written, where that's not true. It wasn't a terrible book, it wasn't terribly written, maybe it was just not your taste. You know, all the Twilight haters out there, do you like romance? You know, because if you hate romance, you're going to hate Twilight, you know? I'm not saying that everybody that likes romance will love Twilight, but, you know, it wasn't my book, but I could still recognize that she was a really good writer and she had some really great ideas. So that's probably about the only time that I can think of right off the top of my head where I've done that.
Okay, I have a bunch more questions here. So let's go with this. All right, so Tanya is asking, I came in a little while ago, but you ladies are talking about self-publishing. Is that what you've done? If so, what's the best advice for doing this? I self-published and my book has only been here in town. So yeah, I think we both have self-published.
Yeah.
I think
we're both hybrids.
Yeah, we're both hybrids. So we've done both things. My advice with self-publishing is to really get exposed to the self-publishing world and listen to some podcasts and interviews with people who are doing well in that world, and listen to they'll do a lot of basic instruction and sharing of information. It's a very, very sharing community. Get connected and listen that out and learn before you make any major purchases or try to do anything, because there is a lot of sharks out there who just are making money off writers people who want to be writers. They're making money off the dream, and you're not going to get the quality product that you want from them. And you won't know not to do it. That's what I'm saying. In the beginning, I bought some big ads that were just a waste of time and money, and I didn't know any better. And if I had been connected to that group of people, there were plenty of, podcast interviews that were like, don't do it. Don't go there. So I would have known. That's my advice.
I think, okay, so there's the Rocking Self-Publishing Podcast. There's the Self-Publishing Podcast, the Creative Pen with 2 N's, because that's her last name, and the Self-Publishing Roundtable. Those are all podcasts that I listen to on a regular basis, like weekly, and they teach you a ton. I would say that as far as selling actual books, there's a few people that have managed it. Not a lot. And it's one of those things that's kind of time intensive. The people that I know that have been able to sell books have gotten into some kind of distribution center, a distributor, there you go, that will sell their books. They have contracts like with Costco. And then if you get with that distributor, then you would need to do X amount of signings, and it's pretty intense. Like, you need to do a ton of signings. And like me, I live somewhere that's pretty rural, and I have a Costco that's in like 20 minutes away, but the next nearest one is 2 hours. The next nearest one after that is 3.5. So that's not something that's really very feasible for me with young kids. So I think you need to worry about, as an indie author, there's this huge list of things to do, and you can't do them all. You can sell your ebooks a lot easier than you can sell print books. So I would start there. I know Amazon is where most of my money comes from. I make probably my next biggest is iTunes. And after that, they're all kind of just little blips, you know? So where can you go? You know, are you everywhere are you on all the retailers online? And are you tying in everything so that people can go to all those different retailers? You need to have links for all of them, not just one. And I know people that just do Amazon, like the KDP Select thing. I think that that is a good short-term marketing strategy, but long-term, you know, you want to be in the most amount of stores possible. That's my personal take on it. And, you know, I know people that do really well that'll have 10 series. So not 10 books, 10 series, and they'll put one series on KDP and the rest of them will be wide. And I think that's when you can start using KDP to your advantage. But, or, you know, I mean, some people, if you have 0 sales anywhere but Amazon, then maybe you can do that and it'll work. So it's just kind of depend on what you do and what works for your books.
Exactly. I agree.
Yeah.
I have another question here. Tanya is asking, when you read a book, wait a minute. When you read a book, you are in the mind of one character and sometimes 2. But is there a rule about how many people's inner thoughts and points of view you can be included in? Does this change if you are in a teen novel compared to a YA or adult? I think what you're asking about is point of view.
Yeah.
And, so point of view, you really need to, in order not to confuse your reader, you need to be in one point of view at a time. You can write a book in multiple point of view, but like my If Only series has 4 voices, so 4 points of view. But we are not in all 4 heads in one scene. So in one chapter of this book, you will be in Kyla's head, and it's clearly marked. You need to do that to help out your readers. I don't know if you can see that, but I have like little moons in this book. So Kyla is written right in the moon, and then we know that she's speaking for that section. And this is told through time and date. So when it switches, literally the moons will switch. So then the next one is, we know we're clearly in Aubrey's voice there. But if you're going to do that, you have to master telling stories in different voices. They have to be different. They have to be distinct, or your readers will just be confused and think, well, this sounds just like the last character. So you have to create idiosyncrasies and speech patterns and things that are different to pull that off. I think that you don't want to be involved in a book where you're trying, I know it's been done, but I think it's difficult to do and not to your advantage, doing a book where one paragraph is somebody's voice, then the next paragraph switches to another voice and the other one. I think that really upsets readers. I think you'll lose readers that way. So I think you need to work on, and it's no different from teen and adult. Dual point of view used to be, boy, when I was starting, I wrote a dual point of view in 2008. And I was shopping that around looking for an agent at that time. And I had so many writers tell me, oh, that's wrong. You can't do that. Nobody's going to buy that book. It's not done. I had agents tell me, don't do this. This is too dangerous. I didn't understand, like, okay, you're saying I'm pulling it off. Why can't I do it? Well, they weren't selling those books. Then all of a sudden they became the greatest thing next to sliced bread. Everybody was doing dual point of view. And all of a sudden it was, oh, give us all your dual point of view books, right?
Yeah.
So I think though, there are some books out right now. I think there's one out that has 12 characters in it or something you follow. I think you got to be a really strong writer to make that happen, A. And I think, you know, that's your book number 29, not number 1. And I think that it's dangerous with readers. I think you really have to be careful that they stay with you in the story.
Right. So I want to have a disclaimer. There are no rules in writing fiction, and but you have to know the rules in and out before you can break them successfully. And it's the same thing with marketing. There are no rules with marketing. Whatever works for you and your books, that's what you do. Especially with, you know, we're all so different that certain things will work for one author that will not work. Things thriller authors can do, I can't do in my high fantasy genre. And, you know, epic fantasy, that's one of the hallmarks of epic fantasy is different points of view. And, you know, if you go Brandon Sanderson's The Way of Kings, he has, like 100 different points of view. And a lot of and he breaks some big rules. Like he'll have one chapter from one person's point of view and that person dies at the end of the chapter. And he does that numerous times. It's one of the things in that book. And, you know, people adore Brandon Sanderson. He makes money hand over fist. So he's doing what his audience wants. I don't like epic fantasy, and that's why, because I don't like, I just get interested in one character and then I'm forced into another character. So it's, if there's an audience for it and if you can pull it off, then do it, you know? But again, there's the caution there that it's one of those things that's maybe left for an experienced writer. If you're just starting out, I would
stop book 1.
Right. Like Brandon Sanderson's first book, he was, his main character was pretty much the main character, and then he was in a couple other heads. You know, he didn't do that with his first book, and he doesn't do it with every book. So yeah, I mean, you could definitely do it and get away with it, but I would say that, you know, wait until you have mastered some of the easier things before you move on to, you know, the Olympic,
exactly,
the Olympic, you know, events.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. Absolutely. I think that exactly what you said is perfect. Okay, let's see. Let's see what we got going on here. How do you put your book in audio format and sell it? Can you make your big break this way? Interesting question.
I've never seen anyone make their headway straight into audio. Audio is a lot more money to produce. So then you're already, you know, we talked about this, you're already deep into the red before you even produce it. And, you know, it depends. There's some producers that will do it as a royalty share. So they take 50 and you take 50, I believe is the cut. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, those are people that are trying to get their work out there. And I've listened to a lot of them, and some of them are good and some of them are going to be great, but they're not there yet. And I never found anybody that I felt was, you know, super amazing. So, you know, I ended up.
You broke up on that last line. So say that last line again.
Okay. So I've never found, some of them are excellent and some of them will be excellent. They're not there yet, you know, and to do the audio, you've got to have a room, you know, you've got, and I don't know all of it, you have to have like this really expensive mic and you have to have a room that's quiet. I don't know if they have to have like special sound things on the walls to absorb sound, and, you know, that's all kind of expensive. So they've got to have the money to do that to begin with. So for me, I think that audiobook is, I make more money on my audiobooks than I do on my print books. So yeah, I think it's a great way to go, but it shouldn't be the first thing you do, in my opinion. And, you know, once again, there's no rules in fiction, but I can't think of a scenario where you would want to do audiobook first. You need to do ebook first and start your audience. And then you can use some of the proceeds from your ebooks to pay a producer to do your audiobook. I do what I've worked out with my producer is we do the 50-50 and then I pay her $100 for a finished hour. So if my book's 10 hours, I pay her $1,000 and then she gets the royalty share for 7 years. My next series, because I'm making enough money on my audiobooks, I'm going to offer her $200 per finished hour and not do the royalty share. So we'll see how that all works out. But Anyway, that was my thought.
Yeah, and I haven't done audio except for that Amazon did audio of mine. But I have listened to a lot of speakers about it, and but seriously, it's all over the map. There's some, it really depends on genre, I think, because a lot of the romance writers will tell you that you should bring audio out immediately with your book. They believe it's a good investment and that you can't go wrong because they feel that people will purchase the ebook as well as audio and continue listening in the car when they're driving and things like that.
Romance readers are voracious, and if you're a romance writer, you're going to make bank if you're good. If you're good and you have good coverage, you'll be fine.
Yeah, so it depends on what you're writing, I would say, but I agree with Amber on really, I think it's an investment, and I think it's better to get some cash in ebooks first and, you know, move on to that. Also, you want to make sure you have a readership for that particular book. If you're going to make that investment, you know, sometimes there's
good point.
Good intentions and you put out a series and it's well written and it's this and it's that and it's everything else, and your readers just don't show up to the game. They're just like,
yeah,
not in enough droves. Like there's always readers, always readers for everything, but they're just not in droves. And so kind of test the product first, test the waters and see, man, if all of a sudden you're making bank in the first month, well, then you know, hey, I've got a winner. I should put this out in as many possible products as I can. And, you know, maybe I want to do it in another language. Maybe I want to hit the German market with this one because I'm doing so well.
Right.
That's the great thing about self-pub, though. You can, like, put it out, and if it, you know, makes bank, you're like, woohoo, I can do this and this. And if it doesn't, you're like, well, you know, it's got some readers, and I move on. You know, so all over the map there, I'd say. Let's see here. Tracy has a question. Often when I read a book, I will find errors, continuity, missing words, etc. And wonder if you as an author would want to be notified. I do a lot of proofing at work, so I can't help myself. You know, I will speak to this because I worked with a company, like my completely non-self-published series, and something was missed, and something that was really big was missed. And a very gracious reader got a hold of me, happened to be that we were doing something together. She's a blogger. And so I let her have, she had an advanced reader. And she contacted me, and in the most gracious, kind, and respectful way, she contacted me and said, I just wonder if I'm reading this wrong or if there's a problem. And she directed me to the spot, and I just get process to eliminate a particular word out of the sentence and put the right one in. And it made a huge error. And I was like, thank you for telling me, and thank you for being so kind and so polite. Mistakes happen. They just happen. And I got a hold of the publisher 11th hour, and they were all like, oh no. And so everybody jumped into action, and you know, there's no finger pointing, no blaming. I don't know where it happened in the process. I don't care. All I care is that we get it fixed. And so that was wonderful. I've had a few people contact me with my self-pub stuff and say, oh, hey, I found this little thing, or I found that. And, you know, if they contact me and they're gracious and they're appreciative and they're a fan and they love the writing and they're just like, you know, if they come at me from an angle of, I understand that you're writing 120,000 words and not all of them are going to be correct, or, you know, a didn't might end up a did, or an a might be an an, and they just want to show you that to help you, I am so thankful. I am grateful, and I love it. I think, thank you. But it's all in the space in which you approach a writer. if you know that that's a common thing, even in published books, traditionally published books, they sometimes have lots of errors. It's just because the brain and the eye skip things as you get reading. You're into the flow of the story and you're not being as careful reading on. You're looking, and sometimes you're looking for other things as an editor. So as long as people understand that that can happen, and it happens in both worlds, and they're not coming at you from a point of, oh, hey, you self-pubbed, and guess what? I found like 6 errors in your book, and it's like not good because of it. Well, you know, anybody's not going to love that, right? So it all depends on what the approach. But I think, I don't know, Amber, how do you feel about it? I'm grateful to know, because I'll just fix it.
Well, I think if you're traditionally published, there's not a lot you can do.
No, you can't.
Because I had my book traditionally published, and you'd find errors, and they're like, we're done, that book's done. So yeah. Unless it was some huge thing like you were talking about at first, they're not going to fix it. So it's kind of like one of those situations where it's like somebody's maybe wearing a horrible outfit, you know, that maybe they're colorblind and they don't realize that they don't match or whatever. Can they do anything about it? Is it gonna, or can you help them? You know what I mean? So at the same time, you know, I had a reader email me and, you know, talk about how much she loved my books, and then basically tell me I need to fire my editor because there's errors all over the place and going off. And then she starts talking about details of my books. This isn't my book.
Oh no, oh no.
Yeah, I was like, you got the wrong author. I don't know how she confused us. This girl wrote like romance books, and our names weren't similar. I'm not sure how she confused us, but I was like, you know, so if someone was really good, a really good copy editor, and they're catching things that are like really like, I'm gonna be like, yeah, I want you to read my next book. Mm-hmm. You know, I would love that. I ask all of my when I send out my ARCs, I always include a note that says, if you find any grammatical errors, please tell me. I want to know, because, yes, you know, it's not out yet. I haven't walked out the door yet with it. So if there's something there, let me know. You know, I would love that. And then, like you said, if they're being respectful about it, if someone comes up to you and just is rude, it doesn't matter what they say. Yeah. They're being rude, you know? So as long as you just said, you know, I love your book. The book's great. Here's a few errors I thought you might want to know. Yeah. I don't see anything wrong with that.
And those are the great kind of people that you want to include in, you know.
Yeah. Those are the people you email and you're like, do you want an ARC next time? And then
like
you can read it.
On my advanced reading list, you get the book early. You get to read it before anyone else. You have to be quiet about it, but you get to do that, and you get it free. And in exchange for that, you know, I usually look for a review, and I look for feedback like that. And I love those people.
Right. And at the same time, you can't say, you know, this character doesn't work. You need to cut them out of the story.
No, because it's too late for that.
We're beyond that, you know, but like small grammatical things, that would be great.
Yeah, like small corrections are amazing. And there's some people who, like you said, you know, you just have an eye for that. That's fantastic.
I'm not one of them. I'm really not. I'm a great alpha reader, which is, if you're not into the book world, those are the people that find plot holes, big problems, right? I can find the big problems. The little teeny dropped letters, my mind just automatically inserts them or fixes them, and I don't even notice them.
That's what happens, and that's why there's errors in books, because like the majority of people do that too when they read. So,
right.
Question. All right, so let's move on. Sharon wants to know, how do you decide the title of your book? When during the process do you give it a name?
Okay, so Witch Fall was kind of a hard one, because I when you start a series, and this was before I had started plotting, so. And that's another thing, is when you don't plot, you can write yourself into corners really easy. But so I already had Witch Song, and if I ever wrote a sequel, I knew it was going to be Witchborn. But trying to come up with the second books that needed to, for continuity in the series, it needed to start with witch and have one other word that fit the books. And then, you know, there's a novella in there too called Witch Rising, and that coincides, the title coincides with what's actually happening in the book. So Witch Rising and Witch Fall. And I am one that I like tight titles. Some people get really flowy with theirs, you know, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's just my preference. So most of my books have 2 words. My Priestess Prophecy series is going to be 1 word. And, you know, you also need to take into account your genre, because everything about your book needs to say, you know, what kind of book this is. I mean, my book has witch in the title. That's pretty self-explanatory. My magical system deals with singing. Once again, that's in the title. And see, what that happens is Amazon and other sites, if you type in witch in Amazon under books, my book is like the first one that comes up, you know, because it's in the title, it's in the description. So your titles need to, that's another thing, it needs to just be another descriptor for your book. You know, my Winter Queen series, she's a winter queen. And that's the last book, which, hey, you guys on the comments, let me know. We're trying to decide between Daughter of Winter and Winter's Heir. So, which the first book is Winter Queen, and then it's Summer Queen, and then it would be either Daughter of Winter or Winter's Heir. So yeah, you guys let me know what you think. We're still on the fence about that one. But I actually have had those titles. It's been Daughter of Winter for 5 years. But that one just popped into my head when I was writing it, because it was actually in a sentence. You know, Winter's Heir, and I was like, bing, I think I like that better, but I don't know. And so yeah, all the rest of them have pretty well flown. The Forbidden Forest is my next series, and it's the Forbidden Forest, you know what I mean? And that sounds fantasy. That's not a book that's going to be, it doesn't sound like a thriller, you know? So I can just tell you the title, and already you're getting an idea of what the book's about.
Right. And that is really important, especially on Amazon with algorithms and stuff, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I am weird. I can't start a book unless I have a title. I'm not writing it without it. So the title comes first for me. Well, the idea might come, but then I'm like, okay, so what is this? What is this? And kind of like you just said, it's got to embody something to do with the book.
Yeah.
Since I was more involved in the traditional pub world before I became a self-pubber, a lot of my titles thus far, have not been as strategically planned as you just pointed out. They've been more about conveying something from the book, or about the book, or connected to the theme of the book, or something like that. Mm-hmm. But I think what you're doing is very wise, and I think that is very helpful with self-pub. I always name them first. And I also quirkily name characters. If I don't have everybody's name, like literally first, middle, and last name, I can't write them. So I have, sometimes I put up like phone boards with everybody's information. I'll type it out on little cards and put it up there. And I had a great big thing going when I was writing Lumiere. It was like a big standout, you know, one of those presentation boards, and I had all the families and who were they and who was connected to who and who was living in whose house, and I just found that was really helpful. So
yeah, that's awesome.
All right, what else we got? Oh, people are saying winter. Tracy says Winter's Heir.
Oh, okay.
So and Tanya says Winter's Heir. Interesting.
The questions aren't popping up in order that they are posted.
No.
And it's confusing on this one, because like now I'm seeing, you know, somebody will say the title or the author's name or ask a question, but it doesn't show up when we say it.
Yeah,
so sorry, I'm not ignoring you on purpose. It doesn't show up here.
Okay, I'm gonna just go to this one for Sharon. What is your favorite book, and did it inspire you to be a writer?
So I'm going to say that's 2 questions for me. I read Christopher Paolini's dragon books, Aragon, and that was honestly one of the first, I think it was the first high fantasy book that I ever read. And part of the reason for that was I was always embarrassed by the covers of these girls in these like metal bikinis. I was like, I'm not going to take that and read it. It was embarrassing. So I'd never even tried the genre. And when that book came out, my mother-in-law actually bought it for my husband. And I read it because my husband doesn't read. And I was like, this is amazing. Like, I love high fantasy, and I didn't know that before then. So then I went and bought the whole rest of the series, and I started looking into publishing, and I found out this kid was 16 when he wrote the book. And I was like, I think I was 24 at the time. And I was like, you know what? If a 16-year-old kid can write a book and publish it, I'm going to stop putting it off, and I'm going to stop putting it in my dream drawer, the things I want to do when I grow up. I am grown up now, you know? If I'm going to do it, let's do it. If he can do it, I can do it. So that was the book for me that was like, kind of kicked my butt into gear. And as far as my favorite book, I love Hunger Games. You know, not maybe that's a pat answer, but she did an amazing job with that book. She did such an amazing job. And, you know, there's not a lot of books that I've read through more than once. I'm just not that reader. And that's one of them. Another one is The Hollow Kingdom by Claire B. Dunkel. And it's really not that well known of a series. Like, people don't talk about her books a lot, and they should, because she's really amazing. And it's romance, but it's kind of historical fantasy. And I think they're amazing. I love her books. So those would be two of my favorites. I also love like Melissa Meyer's books, and I could go on and on. I love books. I'll let you go.
You know, I think, okay, there's a writer, her name is Lori Lansons, and she lived in my hometown, and she went to high school when I was in high school. We weren't at the same high school. We were at rival high schools. I was at the cooler one. Let's just put that out there. Lori's going to laugh about that because it's not true. I was at the bad school, the bad end of town school. She was at the really good end of town school. But anyways, we knew each other well in that time frame, and we actually went to college in the same place. We didn't go together or anything, but we ended up in the same place, and we were both in journalism. And then the first week of journalism class, they said, forget every metaphor you've ever heard, all the flowery language, all the descriptive stuff out of your head. This is bones, bare bones, like just tell the facts. Writing, you're just repeating things that happened in the world. You're, you know, putting it out in a newspaper. And I went, that is not what I want to do. Like, I don't want to do this. Yeah. So I remember that we were driving home from Windsor to our home town of Chatham, and we were carpooling, and I was wanting out of the class. And I remember her saying, you know, don't, just like take it. You'll learn a new kind of writing, and then you can just do whatever writing you want later. And I should have listened to her, and I didn't. I ditched the class and I took something else. I actually took law, because, you know, law is so much better. So
yeah.
Fun.
Yeah, they like lots of flowery things in law.
Yeah. Like, what have I done? But anyway, roll forward, she went on and she became a bit of a reporter, but then went off and did her own thing. And then she wrote a blockbuster of a book. And I was in our local hometown bookstore, and I walking along the shelves, and I saw her name on the spine, and I just gasped. I was like, my God, she did it. And I pulled that thing off the shelf and read it and held it and cried. I literally cried in the store. And I was like, she made it real. Like, you're from my hometown, exactly, you know, in the same spot as me, and you could do this, which means I can do this. And I think that I owe her for making me go, okay, let's go. Just like you, if this person can do this, I'm not going to put this in the dream box anymore. Here we go.
Yeah.
And that book was Rush Home Road, by the way. Great, great dual point of view story. Fabulous, fabulous book. And she's written The Girls and the Mountain Stories, her most recent one. She's incredible. She's an incredible writer.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was another thing too, is high fantasy's changed a lot. You know, I don't necessarily love Terry Goodkind, and I don't really even like epic fantasy, because they switch the viewpoint so much. And a lot of not all of them, but like, I love Jennifer Robertson. She's amazing. And she's one of the older ones, but she has a lot of romance in her books. And a lot of high fantasy is really, if it's written by men especially, they don't put the romance in there. And for me, I have to have that in there to like a book. There's not very many books that I love that don't have some kind of a romance angle into it, you know, or as a subplot. So, you know, there's that too. I think sometimes, like, you know, you have to have this moment when you're like, I can do this. Somebody else did this. I can do this, you know? And then as authors, you have to walk this very fine line between, you know, this enormous sense of I suck to I'm amazing, you know? And you kind of, and you go back and forth on these two. Like, I'll be writing stuff and I'm like, this is so good. Oh my gosh, I'm amazing. This is so good. And then literally like 10 minutes later, I'm like, I suck. Nobody's gonna read this dribble. And I always like, there's always this point, and I always call the same person, and I'm always like, this book, I'm gonna throw it away. It's not gonna work. It's not gonna work. It sucks. It's terrible. And she's always like, have you been outside lately? When was the last time you slept?
Fresh air. Go have a cookie.
I actually named a character after her. Jolene in Witch Fall is actually a real person. Anyway. Yeah.
So true though. Like, honestly, you're in your little room and you're writing and you're like, oh, this is so good. I'm so great. I'm wonderful. And then you like, you know, then the next day you wake up and you read it over and you're like, why did I ever think that was good? Like,
Yeah.
what's the matter with me? And you know, what really kills me is when I send it out to my story editor coach I work with. And I like love that woman to death. And I know she's right. And I know she'll kick my butt and make it better. And I always want to send her stuff. And I'm always like, hey, will you please read this paragraph? Can you read just this one page? Tell me if I'm on the right track. And I am never on the right track. You know, never does she ever send it back and go, that wowed me. That was amazing. Leave it just as it is and keep going. No, she always is like one little line of happiness and then this brutality follows. Like, you need to do this, try that, change this, go here. And then sometimes
I was talking about like your highest highs and your lowest lows with your actual writing. That's how I felt by my editor. I'm like, I love this woman, but when I'm in edits, I hate her.
I know. I just want to.
And I text her, and I'm like, I hate you.
I know. I totally just want her to.
Like, it's for your own good. Just, I'm petting you through the screen.
Yes.
You know, like,
She's so nice. She's so kind about it. But I do just sometimes want to strike her because I'm just like, can you never just write back and go, that was amazingly good.
Wow.
It is.
Wow.
Yeah, like any part of it. It doesn't matter what part. Give me like 5 pages that could stay and I would love you, you know.
I know.
It's amazing.
But we love them. I know. I think she has something on her business card that says, I will tear you to shreds and you'll thank me for it.
Yeah, I couldn't live without mine. I seriously couldn't. I wouldn't be writing without her. But
I wouldn't either. I'm always. I even have a hard time because I told you what happened with my cover artist. I don't want to say her name out loud because then I'm like, everybody will flood her and she won't have room for me. Either that or she'll like jack up her prices to where I can't afford her anymore.
yeah, we're totally just not going to talk about them. Like their
I know.
names.
Y'all don't get to know. I'm sorry. Just talk to the hand.
I know. I'm sorry. You have to do it. You have to do it too. Okay, so that's good.
I really will tell you if you email me.
Oh, well, that would be nice.
Maybe. I'm not making promises. It's just the guilt talking right now. And if the guilt is still coming up and bubbling up, then maybe I will. And maybe I'll be like, no.
Okay, so Sharon wants to know from me, so I'll answer this. Do you ever change the title then once you get into the writing and decide you need it to be a different thing? Oh, yeah. Okay, so ready for this? This was originally, wait, I have to think. This was originally Luminous. Then a lovely friend of mine, whose name is escaping me right now, came out with a great book called Luminous, and she stole my freaking title. So I was like, okay, that's not going to happen. Then it became the Illumination Paradox, which is the name of the series now. Then it became Luminate, which was dumb. Then it became Luminosity, until my lovely teenage children went, Mom, that's like an Apple product or whatever. I don't know. It's some kind of like techie thing. And I was like, so? And they're like, you can't steal that. That's dumb. So then it became Lumiere because as I was writing, I wrote in something where she finds a file and it's coded And spoiler alert here, her dad has coded
Plug
it.
your ears, plug them.
Plug your ears if you don't right. But her dad codes this file for her to find that she's been searching for. He coded it and used French. And of course, the X-ray machine, they called it the light or the ray. And so Lumiere is light in French. So when I wrote that into the book, I was like, still undecided of what word it was going to be the title. And when I wrote that, I was like, that's perfect, because then the second book is really dark and thus it will be noir. And I was all like crafty and thought I was, you know, brilliant for that little moment before people crush you and you don't think you're brilliant.
Yeah. The highs and the lows. Yeah. Yep. I know.
Tiny little bit of high. Okay. We have another one here. Tanya wants to know, have you ever had anyone ask you to proofread a book that they've written? If so, what do you think is a fair price for them to charge? Fair price to charge them?
You can't afford me. I'm teasing. I'm a big tease. I don't have time to edit other people's books. I do for people that I owe, you know, which is why I try not to owe people stuff because then they always want something back. And yeah, it's not what I want to do. So that's, yeah, I don't.
Because once you start into self-help, you're basically running a business. You're running your own business. And that's a 24/7 job. I do some content editing, but I don't do proofreading. So that's not my strength. So I wouldn't wish me on you. But I would say fair price for you to search someone out for the proofreading stage. I don't know. What do you think, Amber?
I pay my content editor $2 per manuscript page. And that's, you know, that's the Times New Roman 12-point font, you know. My copy editor isn't that much. For like 100,000 word book, I think I'm paying her like 8 or 7. So, you know, I spend a lot of money on, I've usually spend more money on my editing than I do on my covers. So, I mean, and that's the thing too, is you can sometimes get a deal on an editor. Like I said, if they're starting out and they're good, like from the get-go, I mean, they're going to get better, but they're already starting out really great. Then, you know, sometimes you can get a deal, and sometimes you can get people that, you know, you can trade. If you're in a bind financially, you could, you know, I'll do yours if you do mine. But it's not going to do any good for me to copy edit your book because I'm not a copy editor. I'm not good at it. I can do a content edit, but once again, there's like we were talking about this before. As a small business owner, there's a bajillion things you can do, and you can't do them all. So you have to pick and choose which ones are important to you and which ones you're good at and which ones you want. And so, yeah, if you can find somebody, I know there's a lot of authors that do it. I know Angela Eschler does it. I can't think of any more right off the top of my head. But, you know, Tristy Pinkston does it as well, but they love doing it. So that's, I think, where so yeah, price-wise, you can shop around. A good way to do it is, you know, get some referrals from people who have got, you know, you've read their stuff and it's clean and it's tight, and ask them who their editors are, and then email them, and then you send them like the first chapter or the first 10 pages. They edit it for you, and then you can kind of see if they're a good fit for you. And, you know, they don't charge you for that. Because they don't want to work with someone that's not going to be happy with what they end up doing anyway either. So, and you know, for when I was looking for an editor, I did that. I did 10, I think, and found one that was, in my opinion, amazing. So there you go.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think by just, you know, kind of a comparison rule, you should pay less for the proofreading stage than you should the copy editing or the content editing stages. So, because your book should be getting cleaner through each of those stages. So the last one is really just a catch-all of small things. So I always find that that's the grade, like that. So if you are looking just specifically for a proof editor, and you've got somebody saying, you know, they want $1,000 for a pass on a 70,000 word book, I would say that that's probably a little high. So,
right. And that's something you can Google to see prices. Right. You know, they usually charge per what page or per word or.
Yeah, I think
it depends.
That's a stage, eh? So, yeah, and ask for
A.
I did, because I'm Canadian.
Yay, I love Canadians.
I try not to do that online, but sometimes you get really comfortable. And out it comes.
Okay. I come from like my hometown is 6 blocks by 6 blocks.
Yeah.
Like we are like country. You know what I'm saying? Like country. And I can totally get my accent going. You know, go down to the 3-corner piece, see. And then I seen we had like, I don't know, 20 head. And we got that 20 head. I mean, I can pull it out. If you want to, we can pull it out. So.
Oh, that's bad.
Right?
It'd be bad.
We grew up with I seen. And the teachers, like all the English teachers at our school, was like, "You will not say this." And we said "ain't" a lot.
Oh yeah. I know when my kids were little, I used to laugh because I would say, "You have to do this or whatever. You need to go do that," and they would say, or I would say, I would catch them doing something, and I'd say, you know, you did this or whatever, or you're doing something wrong. And they would say, no, I amn't. I amn't. Not at all.
My daughter still says hangaber. Instead of hamburger, it's hangaber. It's so cute.
I always pick on them when now they're like in their 20s and they don't think it's funny at all. But
yeah. My middle son, he did something and he was like, oh my gosh. So cute, this little 2-year-old. Oh my gosh.
Yes, hold on to those moments. Okay, I think we're gonna just about wrap this up.
We need to give away the free books though.
Yes, we do. So I have one more question here. We're gonna answer it real quick and then give away our books. So sometimes when I start a new story, I have a problem starting. Do you ever just write a neat scene that you feel like writing and then leave it for now and figure out where to put it later? All the time. I have about 52 first chapters in my computer, if that helps you. And I don't know if they'll ever become anything. So yeah, that's called writing. That's being a writer. Sometimes your brain percolates ideas and you need to get them out on paper, and sometimes that's all they are. Sometimes they're a scene, sometimes they lead to more. Be thankful and grateful when they show up and write them down, and because they'll lead to more and more stories.
Yeah, I have those too. And before I was published, you know, the old adage was, don't write, if you write the first book in a series, but don't write the rest of them, because if a publisher doesn't pick up the first book, there's no point in the second one. You can't sell book 2 and 3 if you can't sell book 1. So I did that, and I wrote 8 series, the starters of the book. And now what I'm doing is going back and finishing those series. So I have the next, the Forbidden Forest. That book's 60,000 words already, and it's been sitting on my computer for years, you know. And then I have a vampire book that it's a serial, so the first one's actually out and available, and the rest of them are all in my head, you know. So yeah, and I've got books where I've got maybe a chapter written, and you know, I've got books that, like, I want to write a companion series to my Witch Song series that is steampunk. So it's like later, and instead of like high fantasy, it's more steampunk, but still with the witches and the singing, and you know, but I don't have a story, I just have a setting. So you know, and you're just always kind of percolating these ideas and moving them around in your head. And I'm one of those authors that I have more books inside of me than that will probably ever be written, because I'm not going to live to be 500 years old.
Exactly. Me too.
I'm not, unless I get lucky in some cute sparkly vampire, you know.
Yeah, we get really lucky with one of our books then maybe, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so absolute last question from Jessica Porter. If you hadn't become a writer, what do you think you would be doing right now? And then we are going to we're going to tell you how to get your free books.
Yeah, what was that site so I can type it up? Do you remember? I can never remember the site.
What site? What do you mean?
the free books that we just put the link in and they can just go download them.
Oh, free booksy, isn't it?
I can't talk to them right now. No, that's a free website.
The one we put our books on? Is that what you're talking about?
The link that I gave you that has the free books.
Okay, I'll look it up. You answer the question. What would you do right now?
Okay, so if I wasn't a writer, what would I be doing right now? Well, I am a mom, which is a full-time job. And so I've got that going on. And then, let's see. I always kind of wanted to be a physical therapist. And my degree is in physical education, which is a good major to go into physical therapy school. And I would probably go back to school and get my PhD in physical therapy and start doing physical therapy, because that would be something that I would really like to do. Anyway, so also my degree is in teaching. So if we really needed money, I would be a teacher. Or, working for a company because with an English degree, there's a lot of companies that need someone with a writing background. So there's that too.
All right. This is terrible. I can't find that site.
I know, right? Okay, well, I can tell you that if you sign up for my newsletter, you get 4 free books.
Okay, wait. I'll go on the newsletter thing. Hold on one second. That'll tell us.
Yeah. So, and if you don't want to stay on the newsletter, you can always unsubscribe. I'll cry great big crocodile tears, but you could do it.
Yeah. How do
I comment?
Here it is. Hold on a second.
Because there's like nowhere for me to comment. How do I comment?
Instant freebie is where it is.
Oh, yes.
Here we go. So I have the link to yours. If you look on your newsletter, you'll probably get the link to mine.
Did that work? Did that post my link group chat?
Okay, so I'm going to try something. Okay, I'm going to answer this question first, and then I'm going to try something on here. So I will either leave it in the comments for people who are here tonight. So the answer to my question, what would I be doing right now? I don't know what I would be doing, because I used to be a teacher. And I got very sick in a portable teaching building that was filled with black toxic mold and erected over uncapped oil wells in an old oil well site. In their infinite wisdom, they built a school there after they abandoned an oil site. And so I ended up very, very sick 10 years ago, and I had to leave teaching. So I kind of decided that this chapter of my life was doing what I wanted to do, which was what I always wanted to do, was be a writer. So I think if I wasn't doing this, I would be sculpting or painting or other things that I really wanted to do. And I would really, once upon a time, for some reason, I also wanted to be a real estate agent because I love houses. So I don't know if that makes any sense, but I always thought it would be cool to sell people their really great dream homes. So that's it for me. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to try something here. I am going to try to post on the side.
Did that work? Did my post show up?
I think it did. Okay, so is that your book then for free?
Let's go. So the top one, the E.E. Purell, that one is my newsletter, and you can get you get Which Song free, which sometimes it's free on Amazon. It is right now, but it isn't always. You get Which Song, and you get, let's see, Witch Rising, Of Fire and Ash, and Of Ice and Snow. You get 4. You sign up for that. If you don't want to do that, I made Of Ice and Snow free just for this event, and it'll be free for like 4 days, I think. And then Which Song is free, and I put all those links on there. And then, yeah, so, or you can just do the Insta freebie, whatever way works for you. Also, if you're willing to do a review on like a whole bunch of different sites, I'll give you a Winter Queen. You just have to email me, put my email address. There's my email address. So
Okay, so did you go on your newsletter and pass my link out? Because I can't access my own link on that Insta free.
That's weird.
Yeah, I just tried.
I can pull up that MailChimp.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. And then you can put it
Grab
up.
it for you.
You can put it underneath this.
See if there's any questions while I do that.
Yeah, all right. So I'll talk a little bit about mine too. So you're all welcome also to join my newsletter if you're interested. No pressure at all.
Pressure, lots of pressure.
Because you know it's like tons of fun, and you know I'm so entertaining, sparklingly entertaining. But anyway, I do lots of little giveaways and fun things. A couple of the things that people have done, joined and enjoyed in the past on mine have been they named a character in noir for me. They've also been asked to participate and help me out with book 3. Right now I'm looking for people who want to know a certain thread wound up in book 3 from the first 2 books of my Illumination Paradox series. If they're interested to let me know. I'm open to like finding out what they want to know. And I've done some other things that were really fun, and I'm always handing out free writing there, beginnings of new projects that I'm starting and stuff like that. So this is my newsletter. You can just go there and click on the envelope at the top, and it's it'll take you to a thing to sign up.
So I'm not seeing, but the questions, like it's not showing up under the questions because I'm looking and I'm not seeing any of the posts that I just put up there.
That's too bad. How are we going to do that? So it's under the group chat. So wherever that's coming up.
So you do the chat like on the left, then you can see it, but it's just our comments.
It doesn't have the stuff there. So let's
under the questions. I can put it, we can put it on the.
Let's see if we can put it on the Q&A. I don't think we can write on the Q&A.
What if I put it on the Google Plus page?
Yeah, we can
okay.
below.
So I put that on the Google Plus page, and you guys can get it there. And then if it doesn't work for some reason, let us know. But we'll take it down so that, because I just want it to be like a thing that's just for you guys. Yeah. So,
well, another thing we can do is everybody. The other thing we can do is this. If you want to drop me a line to garlickbooks@gmail.com and let me know that you were at the party. Even if you didn't ask a question, if you were at the party tonight, drop me a line at garlickbooks, with an S on the end, @gmail.com, and I'll see to it that you get the link for the free read and the information about the newsletter. And for Amber, you want to tell them where to get a hold of you?
Yeah, it's amberargyle@yahoo.com. Okay. So AMBERARGYLE@yahoo.com. And yeah, just let me know. And like she said, if you didn't answer or ask any questions, that's fine. You still were here. So
yeah, it doesn't matter at all. Just go ahead and write us. And I will put it in the show notes at the bottom. Like when you come back, if you want to, after we're done right now, I'll end the program, this program, and then immediately put our information in the show notes. How's that sound? Amber will do that too.
And I put it on the Google Plus page. So that's 3 different ways you can get a hold of us. Right. Hopefully one of them works.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just going to copy my thing there.
I've had fun. I don't want to quit.
I know this has been a real blast. I'm really excited that people showed up and asked us lots of questions, and we've had a good time with each other, chatting as usual. And so I guess we'll just end by letting everybody know that we are thrilled that they were here and that we had lots of fun. And thank you for coming. Thank you.
Love you guys. Bye.
Yeah, thanks for reading us.
Yeah.
Bye.